In late summer 2025, America faces a new oil shock, one that feels both sudden and eerily familiar. Across the country, drivers wait in long lines at gas stations, watching digital price boards climb higher by the day. The sense of unease is palpable, as families and businesses brace for what comes next. The era of cheap, predictable energy has come to an abrupt end, leaving highways emptier and once busy refineries eerily quiet. The ripple effects are being felt in every corner of American life, from the suburbs to the heartland. A perfect storm of geopolitical tension, unexpected production shortfalls, and surging global demand has created the tightest oil market in years. Oil prices are spiking and uncertainty is spreading through financial markets and households alike. OPEC Plus can no longer calm markets with promises, barrels aren't materializing, and anxiety is rising. Even the most powerful oil producers seem unable to restore balance as traders and governments scramble for solutions. The U.S., despite its own production boom in recent years, remains deeply tied to global energy flows. Pipelines and tankers connect America to a volatile world, making it vulnerable to shocks far beyond its borders. Prices at the pump are set not just in Texas or North Dakota, but in Moscow, Beijing, and beyond. International politics and distant markets now dictate what Americans pay for fuel. As global supply falters, America faces higher costs and diminished influence. The pain is felt at every fill-up, and the nation's economic clout is being tested. This isn't just an economic inconvenience, it's a strategic threat, shaking consumer confidence and pressuring political leaders. The shockwaves reach from kitchen tables to the halls of Congress, forcing tough choices and urgent debates. Rising fuel costs act as a tax on every family and business, slowing growth and fueling public anger. Small businesses struggle to keep up, and families are forced to make difficult sacrifices. The questions mount: how did we get here? Who's responsible for this crisis? Was it avoidable or was it inevitable given the world's insatiable thirst for oil? And what does this mean for the months ahead? Will prices stabilize, or is this just the beginning of a much larger upheaval? The answers lie in a tangled web of broken promises, strategic moves, and insatiable demand. Every decision, every deal, and every disruption has led us to this moment. As the nation heads into a period of economic and political uncertainty, one thing is clear: the oil shock of 2025 is just beginning, and its impact will be felt for years to come. OPEC Plus, a powerful coalition led by Saudi Arabia and Russia, once had the ability to stabilize global oil markets with just a single statement. For years, their coordinated production cuts or increases could send prices soaring or tumbling, and their unity was rarely questioned by traders or governments. In early 2025, facing mounting pressure from volatile markets and growing demand, OPEC Plus made a bold promise. They would add 2.5 million barrels per day by September. This announcement was meant to reassure nervous investors and calm the jittery energy sector, signaling that the group was ready to act decisively. But as the months passed, the promised oil never materialized. Tankers sat idle, refineries waited, and the world watched for shipments that simply didn't come. By June, it became clear that the group was delivering far less than it had pledged. Production numbers lagged behind targets, and the gap between promise and reality grew wider. The shortfall sent shockwaves through the market. Brent crude, which had hovered around $58 in April, surged to nearly $70 by August, squeezing consumers and fueling inflation worldwide. As prices climbed, markets began to lose faith in OPEC Plus. The so-called phantom barrels, oil that was promised but never delivered, triggered a crisis of confidence among investors and governments alike. Inside the alliance, unity began to crack. Tensions flared at meetings and disagreements spilled into public view. Some members simply couldn't meet their targets due to technical or financial constraints, while others refused to cooperate, prioritizing national interests over group commitments. Internal constraints and deliberate holdbacks meant that collective promises rang hollow. The world realized that OPEC Plus was no longer the reliable force it once was. Instead of providing stability, OPEC Plus had become a source of uncertainty, leaving global energy markets exposed to new risks and disruptions. The United States and other major economies scrambled to respond, holding emergency meetings and searching for alternative supplies as the group's credibility eroded further. The world is learning a hard lesson. OPEC Plus promises are only as strong as the group's weakest members, and trust, once lost, is hard to regain. OPEC plus production shortfalls stem from both inability and unwillingness to pump more oil. Some, like Kazakhstan, are maxed out, no spare capacity, no extra barrels. Others, like Iraq and Russia, are under penalty quotas for past overproduction, forced to restrain output. This leaves Saudi Arabia carrying the burden, responsible for over 70% of OPEC's net production increase this year. Yet, even Saudi efforts can't fill the gap as other members' exports decline. The alliance's fractures are clear. Saudi Arabia is running on a treadmill, adding supply that's instantly consumed. Global demand keeps outpacing every new barrel. The market remains tight, prices keep rising, and OPEC's limits are exposed. The world is learning. The group's power is only as strong as its weakest link. While OPEC Plus struggles with supply, global demand is surging even faster. Middle Eastern nations burn more oil for power during a record-hot summer, keeping new supply from export markets. Meanwhile, China is stockpiling oil at record rates, 900,000 barrels per day in Q2 alone, soaking up global spare capacity. This double hit means even Saudi Arabia's extra barrels never reach Western consumers. The US and Europe are left fighting for dwindling supplies as China and the Middle East absorb more. The market's dynamics have shifted. Traditional buyers are now at a disadvantage. China's strategic stockpiling has been a game changer, keeping the market on edge. For America, it's a new world, scarcer, more expensive, and fiercely competitive. Oil inventories are the world's safety net, but in summer 2025 that net is fraying. U.S. commercial crude stocks are well below the 5-year average, leaving little margin for emergencies. Europe is worse off. Oil stocks are 9% below average, with winter looming and reserves depleted. Low inventories amplify every supply problem, making markets more volatile and prices more sensitive. With no buffer, even small disruptions can trigger price spikes. The West is forced into a competitive, almost hoarding posture, bidding up prices for scarce supplies. OPEC plus shortfalls in Asian demand have drained Western stockpiles. The result? A perpetual sense of crisis, with traders and consumers anxious about every barrel. The West is running on fumes, and the risks to economic stability are growing. The consequences of an empty tank could be severe. The oil market's anxiety is clear in one word: backwardation. In August 2025, oil for immediate delivery costs far more than future contracts, a sign of desperate present-day tightness. This discourages storage, making it harder to rebuild depleted inventories in the US and Europe. The result is a vicious cycle-tight market: backwardation, no storage, and even tighter market. Backwardation is the market's fever chart, a symptom of severe stress. It reflects OPEC plus shortfalls, China's demand, and low Western inventories. The world is more worried about running out of oil tomorrow than the price next year. The scramble for barrels is on, and the fever isn't breaking. Russia, as the co-leader of OPEC+, stands at the heart of the global oil drama, both a stabilizer and a source of deepening crisis. Once a dominant force, Russia now finds its influence slipping, caught between ambition and harsh new realities. While Russia benefits from the surge in oil prices, it faces a harsh paradox: it simply can't ramp up output. International sanctions, a surging ruble, and the far-reaching fallout from the war have slashed its oil revenues by nearly a third, leaving the country's energy sector in a bind. On top of economic woes, attacks on Russian energy infrastructure, like the dramatic fire at the Afipsky refinery, have become more frequent. These incidents not only disrupt supply but also inject fresh uncertainty into already jittery markets. The ongoing war in Ukraine, now teetering on the edge of fragile truce talks, casts a long shadow over Russian oil flows. Every new development on the battlefield or at the negotiating table can send shockwaves through the energy world. Even if a truce is reached with the US and its allies, there's no guarantee that Russian oil will flow freely again. Markets remain deeply skeptical, wary of sudden policy shifts or renewed conflict that could choke off supply at any moment. Russia's mounting vulnerabilities have eroded its reputation as a reliable supplier. This uncertainty adds a risk premium to every barrel of Russian oil, making global buyers nervous and pushing prices higher. Around the world, leaders and analysts are left to wonder: will peace bring a flood of Russian oil back to the market, or will instability and disruption become the new normal? For now, Russia is a wounded giant, its energy sector battered, its workers anxious, and its future uncertain. Yet, its actions continue to fuel global instability and keep the world on edge. Russia's struggles are now a central part of the world's energy headache, complicating efforts to stabilize supply and demand. The market is left guessing, with volatility reigning supreme as traders and nations alike try to anticipate the next twist in this unfolding crisis. Russia's power may be waning, but its impact on the global energy crisis remains undeniable, and the world is watching, waiting for what comes next. The oil crisis has ignited a political firestorm in America, with gas prices fueling partisan battles. Former President Trump blames the current administration for high prices, calling for a return to energy dominance. His message, "Drill, baby, drill," finds a receptive audience among frustrated Americans. Republicans demand deregulation and more drilling. Democrats struggle to balance relief with climate goals. The global complexities, OPEC plus shortfalls, China's stockpiling, are lost in the noise of domestic politics. For most Americans, the reality is simple. Oil is scarcer and more expensive. Political anger is rising, and leaders are under pressure to act, even with limited options. The oil shock of 2025 is now a defining political crisis as well as an economic one.